The 4Ps of marketing were created in the 1960s before the internet, social media, smartphones, e-commerce, and, obviously, widespread generative AI. While they still have their place, how should marketers rethink the framework to make it more relevant to today's challenges? What should we be considering beyond product, place, price, and promotion? Marketing and sales are full of myths, misconceptions, and occasionally outdated frameworks. So join us as we get out of the echo chamber and take the 4Ps from theory to practice with a healthy dose of modernity.
Hello, and welcome to the Rethink Marketing Podcast, where we strive to help our listeners hone their craft in bite-sized segments. I'm Paul Frodge, joined by Mr. Marketing, and for today's conversation, the fair figment of faithfully finding functionality in the familiar 4Ps. Colin Jeffries. Colin, all of these alliterations in this series of 4Ps has been very long, and talk about tongue twisters, but man, I got to take a breath in the middle of those.
I was going to say, Paul, you've outdone yourself with these alliterations.
Absolutely.
For this series. You're really raising the bar.
I don't know if I'm going to compete after this segment, this four series is done.
Well, we'll see.
All right. So talking about process today.
Yes, with the ubiquity of most technology, a lot of organizations fall to the baseline of their processes. They accept processes that are easiest for them and not necessarily best or optimal for their customers. So today, when we're rethinking process as one of the new 4Ps, again, if folks missed the first 2 episodes in this series, we're talking about the new 4Ps of marketing, replacing product, place, price, and promotion with people, product, process, and platform. So today we are talking about process, and our desire here is to help you, our marketing and business leaders, to curate the interactions that we have with our customers, empowering them to self-service conveniently when they want to and when it's optimal, and allowing them to engage with a helpful human whenever that's a better fit. Paul, I had the chance to fly out of the Cincinnati airport about a week ago. Typically when it's me traveling, I like to hit those early morning flights so I can get a jump on the day. And so I got to the airport, had 45 minutes to kill before my flight started boarding. And I went into the food court, and there's the Earl of Sandwich, which sells breakfast sandwiches. Again, it was early morning flight. And I think Bruegger's Bagels. And Bruegger's had 35 people in line. I kid you not. It was packed. The Earl of Sandwich had not a single person in line. And here's the difference. The Earl of Sandwich had 3 kiosks, like tabletop kiosks, countertop kiosks with big order here signs. And Bruegger's had 3 people behind the counter hustling, talking, making conversation, getting people's sandwiches going, all this other stuff. And I sort of positioned myself in the middle, and I saw a couple of people that walked up to the Earl of Sandwich. They started to hit buttons on the monitor, got frustrated, and then walked and stood in a 35-person line to buy their breakfast sandwich from a human. And the offerings, yes, Bruegger's has bagels and different varieties, and the Earl of Sandwich has, English muffins and whatnot. They're a little bit different, but both of them serving breakfast sandwiches, one relying on technology because it's a baseline. It's really easy and simple for them. They don't have to pay order takers because people can self-service. And yet people were very, very against that. And instead they would rather stand in line. Again, we're talking about airport here, where time is of the essence. People would rather stand in line and engage with a human than they would to stand in front of a monitor and enter their own order. I only share this observation because we as businesses oftentimes are pushing customers to do certain things. Our process is what's best for us selfishly and not necessarily what's best for them. So we should step back and look at our methods, our workflows, etc., to ensure that, when people are requesting information or scheduling a demo or requesting appointment online or what have you, that they're able to talk to a live person when they can, that the process is really built around them and not built around us.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Earl of Sandwich. I know the exact terminal that you're talking about at the airport, and you were more observant than I was in regards to no people in line. I also observed no people in line. I just thought that the food was bad. or that nobody had heard of Earl of Sandwich and was going to Brugger's because of the marketing that they do, and they know that they get a bagel and all that. So very observant. I was just traveling recently, and we had to stop into Walmart for something, and I was getting frustrated because there were cashiers, only two cashiers, handling everybody with the full carts, but the wait in line was for the self checkout, and I was getting irritated that I couldn't go check out faster. And everybody that's been to a Walmart that knows that the checkout process is pretty easy. So a little bit different on the process there, but they didn't have as many terminals open for the self checkout. And I was thinking and talking to my wife about why don't they just make more self checkouts at Walmart, and instead of having 17 lanes that nobody's working. So very different. But in terms of the process, I think that it's one of those things when it comes to fast food or checking out yourself. Over time, just like anything, I think it'll become more standard. I remember when McDonald's started the self checkout in the lobby, and most people wanted to stand in line because they're not used to entering an order for McDonald's and standing there at the kiosk. But I think over time that businesses are going to try to standardize the checkout process, make it more uniform to where people start going through, a similar checkout process to make it easier for people that are wanting to be quicker and enter their own orders.
Yes, you make a great point, Paul. Technology and just inflation generally. I mean, the high cost of labor and the inconsistencies of human labor too. You think about calling in sick and requesting more time off and having health benefits and all the expense that goes into having employees. We can all see as business leaders why it would be preferable to have a machine where the customer is doing the work and they're making sure the order is correct and all this other stuff, right? They're able to check out without me adding any payroll to my business. However, as organizational leaders, we have to be really in tune with what our customers want and when they want it. So maybe instead of getting rid of all of our cashiers and adding only self checkouts, we do a sort of hybrid where we're adding more self checkouts and we're adding scan and pay as you go, those sorts of new technologies, and letting those early adopters do that. But we're also providing human level touch points in ways that make a unique differentiator for us. Because again, talking about the new four Ps, I'm a strong believer that people should be one of them. And if we're squeezing out all of our people and relying on ubiquitous technology instead, then we're really competing on process. When I think about how many organizations now, think about your space where you're competing, how many of them are using a robust CRM, so HubSpot or Salesforce or what have you? How many of them are using a social media monitoring and scheduling tool, so a Hootsuite, a Sprout, a what have you? How many of them are using listings management, a Chatmeter, a Birdeye, a Podium? How many of them are using review generation platforms, right? You can go through the list, and here's the dirty little secret: we're all using the same technology. And so when we're forcing people out and we're looking at these lowest common denominator processes where we're all using the same technology or very similar technology. I'm not saying that HubSpot's better than Salesforce or vice versa, but if you're using HubSpot and I'm using Salesforce, I don't have a competitive advantage because you're also using a high grade CRM. So, all that to say, we as marketing and business leaders have to recognize where our process is in our go to market strategy and in our differentiating strategy. Because if we don't, then what we're doing is we're squeezing people out, and technology is doing that very effectively. And we're squeezing people out, which could be a unique differentiator for us in some regard. And then we're relying on process, and we're relying on the same default process that everybody else is using. We're turning ourselves into a commodity. So as we're thinking about moving from the processes that are easiest for us, easiest for our teams, easiest for our tech stack, et cetera, let's instead think about the processes that are best, easiest, most simplified for our customers.
One thing I want to talk about when it comes to process, let's say it's a service-based business, and we do consulting for many different service-based businesses, and looking at more B2B. And it's interesting, when I'm talking to individuals in an organization, and the ones that say we don't have a process, and I dig in a little bit further and understand that there actually is a well documented process, but those lazy individuals don't want to actually go and learn it. They've been taught, it's in one ear out the other. It's well documented, and those. I don't want to say they're all lazy. I'm stereotyping here, but or maybe it's the communication from the top down. Let's put it that way. It is they don't understand the process. They don't know where to go find the process. It's not something that they're doing every day, and their process in their own head is different than the process that the company wants to follow. So, I'd like to understand your perspective when it comes to process and the best way to communicate it and live it every day.
Absolutely. On the first episode of this series, we talked about people as the foundation of the new four Ps. And and just to reiterate, the new four Ps are people, product, process, and platform. So a big element of people is the culture, who we're hiring, how we're onboarding them, how we're promoting, how we're parting ways with people that aren't a good fit. When we think about the type of person that works on my business, are we hiring, training, and promoting those people? And if we are, then that should feed into the process where the technology that we're using, the training that we're doing, the adoption of those technologies, et cetera, is really what's in the best interest for the customer. So if we are an organization that has radical customer centricity, then we cannot be hiring and promoting and even keeping people who are not following the process, who are pushing for different technology, who candidly are bad mouthing the technology that we have, if we're all in agreement that this technology is best for our customer experience. So I think a lot of it really comes back to culture, Paul, and just figuring out how we're, again, thinking about the new four Ps, how we're hiring and keeping the right people, how we're leveraging the full experience, talking about product, leveraging the full customer experience, and then playing that out in our process, meaning our core values are, again, something like radical customer centricity or speed to market or high quality or what have you, right? Like fill in the blank. The process that we have has to be key. I think about Ritz-Carlton, and I have never stayed at one. I aspire to one day. But there's lore of even before technology allowed, Ritz-Carlton staff would take handwritten notes about different customers, and they would make sure that when a customer was scheduled to come in, that the person behind the desk had the handwritten notes about that customer. And we're talking pre-internet here, right? They're doing this sort of stuff. Now it becomes a lot easier, a lot more ubiquitous, much more commoditized. But even then, they had a process, and the Ritz-Carlton person that was hired, meaning the type of person, the archetype they were hiring, knew the importance of that, and they were able to go the extra mile to be the Ritz-Carlton to customers that were coming in. So again, thinking about the process, it just has to line up with what's best for our customers.
When you think of process, you talk about being customer centric. You think about the opportunity for culture and the morale internally at any organization. I do feel like that process and the opportunity to do it the same way every time really lends itself to speed to market. It lends itself to a great customer experience. It lends itself to the opportunity for any flaws or issues to go away. Maybe not entirely, but limit the number of issues that might stem from that. And with any process, we understand it needs to evolve over time. It needs to be something that sometimes needs to be customized. But those that try to customize it every time is when you're going to start losing profit. You're going to start losing employees. You're going to start losing customers. But when you do it the same way every time, it is an opportunity to be better and to be better than the competition.
You're exactly right, Paul. Consistency is key and adaptability is also key. So I think what we're saying here is you don't necessarily have to have ironclad processes that are set in concrete and you have a zero tolerance for someone violating them, right? No, the process should be, to your point, very intentional and it should matter. I think about the gas station chain Bucky's, and they are radically employee centric. And by taking great care of their employees, the employees then take good care of the customers. And then the customers feel valued and they come back and repatron the store, et cetera. They're not, I would argue, radically customer centric. But customers still have a really good experience because they have the process mapped out where they're taking good care of their employees, they're leveraging good technology, all these other things, right? It's a good experience for the customers because it's a great experience for the employees. And then we have other organizations that are radically customer centric where it's an okay experience for the employees and it's a phenomenal experience for the customers. So when we're thinking about the process and what it is that we want to accomplish with our processes, again, just to reiterate, it should be who's our key stakeholder and then what do they really want and how do we deliver that to them consistently, again, while there's still a little bit of room for us to flex and evolve and leave room for that person-to-person engagement or leave room for the evolution as the market changes. Anything else you would add before we dock the boat here, Paul?
Go from 65 to 90 when you pass a Buc-ee's, because I cannot stand that place, but everybody else seems to love it.
Well, that's fair. I had my first Buc-ee's experience a couple of weeks ago, and I would say overall net positive.
Okay,
but they
good.
do merchandise the heck out of everything.
To each his own, right?
That's exactly right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rethink Marketing Podcast, talking about moving from product, place, price, and promotion to people, product, process, and platform. Please join us next week for the final installment of this 4-part mini-series where we'll be talking about the fourth new P, platform. Until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If people want to connect with us, where should they go, Paul?
RethinkMarketingPodcast.com, Colin. What can listeners do to help us in return for the sage marketing wisdom and our pithy humor?
They can help us by leaving a review on their favorite platform or sharing this episode with a fellow marketer to help them cut through the clutter.
Well, until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions.